Okay, I guess we'll go ahead and start. If you're familiar with Tuleyome and you've attended our lectures before, you probably noticed I'm not Bill. He unfortunately retired, but I'm taking over. So my name is Christy, and we will have lectures occurring on the fourth Thursday of every month now through October. So keep an eye on our website for upcoming lectures. And it looks like everybody's pretty much connected. So I want to introduce JoEllen Arnold, who I connected with through a dear friend who found a bat on her patio, and she was wanted to help it, but also a little bit timid and afraid of them. And through JoEllen, she's learned to really appreciate them and admire them. So with that, I'm going to mute myself. And if everybody else could please keep themselves muted and put questions in the chat, we'll address them at the end. We should have 10 to 15 minutes for questions at the end. So again, if you could just put them in the chat, that would be great. And JoEllen, take it away.
Okay, well, I'm just looking around a little bit here and hoping that I have two devices hooked up. So one is the one where my face is moving, and the other is the one where you see my arm on top of a bat. So I'll be able to show you some bats later on. And I'm really looking forward to sharing these experiences with our local bats with you. I have only, well, let me just go ahead and share my screen and get started. Okay. So, and you might want to reduce the view of people because they might come into the slides that I'm going to show you. So you might want to go to highlight just the speaker and change your view from grid or everybody to just about nothing. So you can see these cool bats that I'm going to show you. So I'm sure that many of you have experienced going to the YOLO bypass to see the bats. Okay, it's supposed to go now. And this is a video that has a lot of people talking and exclaiming loudly. So we'll just watch. And if you haven't been to see this site, you really must. So let's watch the scene. Now, I wish I could ask the audience to raise hands if they have been to see this spectacle. As you can tell, that is thousands and thousands and thousands of bats. And these are all mostly mother bats flying out to see what they can find to eat. All of these little clouds way in the distance, those are all bats. And they live under the Yolo Causeway in well, hundreds of thousands. and come for the summer where the bugs are good to raise their young. But sometimes something goes wrong for one of those bats. As you could see in this image, in this video, there was a peregrine falcon who was unfortunately coming up with some bats in the talons. So that means a baby bat lost its mother that night. And sometimes those bats show up for us, and we need to care for them. This is what they look like when they're roosting. The Mexican free-tail bats, which is what we were just watching on that video, love tiny, tight spaces. So these little faces are looking out of a crack that's about an inch wide, and you can just see their little eyes looking out, and they will, when it's time, put their wings out and fly. And if all goes well, they'll be able to come back too, but sometimes stuff happens. So here's what they look like in flight, and a face view. But why do they come to us for care? Well, as I said, stuff happens. And if you live in Yolo County, frequently they might come in a coffee can, because this is what the police officers tend to have in their trunks, rolling around, and they put bats in them and deliver them to, well, they call us or they drop them off. And this is a container that a bat called Bobby Folger came in for obvious reasons. Just last week or two ago, I got these pictures from someone who had found a bat, and this is another Mexican freetail. And I thought, what is that he's got that bat in? And when I got the bat, it was in a Gatorade bottle that he had cut open to put the bat in. And he said that he had just found the bat on the sidewalk by his dad's dental office, and he didn't know what to do. So he found this container, probably in the trash, cut it open with his knife, picked up the bat with chopsticks and put it in the container. So we get some really strange things. And this bat, she was found on Harbor Way. So her code name for me is Harbor. She had a what do you call it? My brain isn't thinking fast enough. She had a cut on her wrist. And so we bandaged her up, and she's doing okay. It still hasn't healed, and I had to take the bandage off because I could see that it was swelling. But I have high hopes for her. And I just wanted to show you this little picture, because you think a bat has a wrist. Where is the bat's wrist? And if you look at the diagram, you can see the thumb is noted. And then just behind the thumb, at the top of that, the orange bone, which is just like our forearm, that's where her wrist is. So she has a slit about, well, it's more than a quarter of an inch long, but right down the top of her thumb. So I'm hoping that that will heal, but you never know. So you can see that the bat's anatomy is so very similar to our own human anatomy. Then, of course, bats also have feet and ankles and knees like we do. Well, we don't have a tail like most bats that we have around here have. But I'll be showing you more pictures where we can talk about those things. So this bat I was just showing you just has the cut on her wrist, but sometimes the injuries are a lot worse than that. And this is, I'm going to show you a picture of the bat that Terry found and the picture that she took. But you might want to close your eyes for a minute if you don't like yucky stuff. So hold tight. And this is a picture that Terry sent. She said, well, the bat's opening one wing, but not the other. And I had just seen a bat like this, very similar to this, 2 weeks earlier, where the bat's wing had been basically chopped off by something. And crows and jays can do this. So the reason why this bat isn't opening his right wing is because he doesn't have a right wing anymore. So his wing was completely amputated by the jay. So he had to come into care. Obviously, he's never going to go anywhere on his own. So he's with us. Okay, now it's safe to look if you had your eyes closed. This is Batman a month later after he'd been to the vet and had an amputation on his wing. Can you still hear me? I hope so. If I turn the sound off on the video, because I always have a radio going. So unfortunately, the crunching of the bat eating the mealworms, you can't hear it, but look how well he's doing. And as a matter of fact, he eats completely on his own now. So I don't get him out to feed him. So I can't share him with you because he's not used to being handled anymore. So yeah, there's the radio back. But what's going on here? Anyway, I just wanted Terry to know that he's doing terrifically well. Okay, and here's another little sprite. As a matter of fact, I call her Squirt because she's so tiny. In this picture, I'm holding her in my bare hands, which you should never do unless you're vaccinated against rabies and so on and so forth. But don't handle bats with your bare hands. She is eating a mealworm that just shed its exoskeleton, if that's what it is on a mealworm. I don't know enough to know, but it's a nice soft white one. So she's going to chow down on that whole thing. But I'm holding her just in my curled up fingers, and well, it gives you an idea of the scale of this bat. She weighs barely anything, so more than a butterfly, about like a mouse. Look at those whiskers. Anyway, very tiny, very cool bat. She came from Nevada City area, Nevada City, North San Juan, where the call came in saying, oh, help, I've got a bat in my one-room house, and there are 5 cats in the room, and the bat is on the ceiling. Well, somehow the finder was able to get the bat into a box, and someone else drove it down to us in to NorCal Bats. And actually, the funny thing was someone picked it up from Gold Country Wildlife, took it to her house, it got out of the box it was in and disappeared into her art room. And we finally found it in a decorative bat house that was hanging on the wall. So in this picture, you can see this is the edge of the tail membrane, and it should be hooked up right here like it is on the other side. Here's the bat's tail. And the tail membrane is all of this, but the cat got it with one claw probably, and just sliced the tail membrane apart from the edge of the tail membrane and the tail. So it looks like it's healing. This is all new healing in the last week or so. And luckily the cat didn't get this vein or artery or whatever it is. So I think this bat has a good chance of surviving. I'm going to share another bat, different kind of bat. This is a Western red bat. I've had a few of them, or maybe more than a few, come through my house. And this is kind of a compilation of several bat stories, but this bat in particular was found. And let me just share. They're hard to see, but here's her mouth. Actually, this was a boy. Here's his mouth, his nostrils, and his little teeny tiny eye. Red bats have super tiny eyes. You can't even see it on this side, but see his thumb sticking up here, and then all of the bones of his fingers, the first finger, second finger, they're kind of melded together. Second, third finger, fourth finger, baby finger goes all the way down to here. And then here's his little foot. But this is how he was found. He was found on the American River Bike Trail on the pavement. And the people who found him said when they first found him, he was on his belly. But when they touched him with a stick or a shoe or something, I don't know what, he flopped over and did this posture, which this species of bats will always do. This is like a threat posture or a I am really scared posture, but they'll throw their wings open and make a big fuss so that you'll be frightened and back away. Well, luckily the finder didn't back away. He picked up this bat carefully without touching it with his hands and put it in this bag. They were out celebrating somebody's birthday. So he put the bat in this bag and held it in his fingers on his bicycle and biked 10 miles into town where I met up with him. And I was expecting a Mexican freetail because they're so common. But when I opened the bag and saw the red bat, I was astounded. So after teaching the bat that mealworms are tasty, this is what you get, is a happy red bat chomping away in a dish. But it's not something they know how to do instinctually because they're used to catching and eating insects that are flying around, and these mealworms are totally different. So you do have to spend some time watching. Well, what you have to do is pull the head off the mealworm and squeeze the mealworm innards into the bat's mouth like toothpaste. Oh, bat was about to try and fly away at that point. So I forgot to be quiet so you could watch his echolocation. So let's see, let me just play that part again. Watch his mouth and I'll be quiet. So he's echolocating and trying to figure out what's going on. And then he goes, hey, that big thing is gone. I'm going to make an escape. So he was about to fly, but I got him before he did. And notice that the mealworms are also trying to make their escapes all the time too. So I tried him out, see how well he could fly in my study. And here's where he landed on a speaker. So that was a perfect choice. And then I put him in a tree, and you know how our phones make these magic little videos out of our photographs? This is one that Apple Photos made about his release. So when I knew he could fly, I hung him in the little oak tree behind my house and waited for him to go. So he took off when he was ready and was out of here. I'm going to tell you about another species of bat that's very similar. They're kind of in the same family. You can see some of the same facial aspects that the red bats have. And these are also bats that are solitary tree roosting bats. So they don't hang together in huge groups like the Mexican freetails do. They don't live in caves. They live in trees, and they are all around us. And this is the time of year when we get these bats into care, because very frequently they are bothered by squirrels or by jays or crows. They're found where they're roosting, and the birds or the squirrels will try to eat them, to be honest. So this is one. Luckily, a homeowner was sitting out by his pool and saw the jays making a fuss over something and saw something fall out of the tree. And he ran over to see what it was, and it was this bat. He put a flower pot over it to protect it from the birds and called NorCal Bats. And listen to what the bat does. And you'll hear us talking, but you'll also hear what the bat does. Hiss again. Yes.
Really excited about that one.
Girl. So those hisses are very specific to this species. They are such great hissers. It's kind of a spit hiss. And they also throw their arms out like the red bat does in a threat posturing. So this was one hoary bat. She just flew off. She was fine and went on her way within minutes. I'm going to tell you a long story about another bat. This is a bat we call Arden because she was found on a gravel driveway in Sacramento right off Arden Way. But she wouldn't fly. And notice in the picture, this wrist is a little bit swollen, but no broken bones or anything. So it seemed like she ought to be okay. And so she ate, and again, that wrist is still kind of swollen. And the radio is still on. Sorry about that. I've learned to turn it off now before I do videos. And then over time, in the next month, her wings started to deteriorate. And at the same time that her wings were falling apart, it became apparent that it became apparent that she was about to be a parent. But her wings were just in horrible condition. So they went from being crispy to being slimy. And this, let me go back to that other picture because I guess it's about to come. We didn't know what was going on, and our vet didn't know what was going on. And Corky, my mentor, finally said, well, what about wing wasting syndrome? So we read about that and changed the treatment, went from being in a humid environment to a dry environment. And this bacteria that was attacking her wings slowed down. So here she is a bit later, April 22nd, in the flight cage, not flight cage, it's just a pen that I keep the bigger bats like her in. And you can see her wings don't have much wing membrane left on them, but she's perky, she's active, she's definitely pooping. Look at all that big poop. Hoary bats have the biggest poop of any bat I've ever seen. And there, she's gonna try and fly. So she's still very, very active. So this was April 22nd. And then April 27th, she was getting really, really chubby. So we were pretty sure she was pregnant. And here she is getting a spa treatment with a little mascara brush after dinner treat. But you can see how hugely pregnant she is at this point. And then on May 4th, as usual, the radio is on, but there's a lot of rumbling going on in her tummy.
So we had to hire a car for wheel drive.
And this is about 1 in the afternoon. And then as time progressed, she tried to turn around. Bats usually use gravity to help them give birth. But she has worn her claws off on her thumbs. So she can't really hang on or climb very well with her thumbs. And she couldn't really get a grip to maneuver the way she wanted to, but you can see she's in the thralls of giving birth. And I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't had her out to feed her at this time. I don't know how she would have managed. See, she can't get a grip to climb. So I was holding her in my hand and noticed that there was a lot going on and there's something protruding here, but I couldn't even figure out what part of the anatomy it looked like. So I think I emailed a bat person in Texas and said, what's going on here? What am I seeing? What do I do? And she said, well, it looks like you have a breech birth and you might have to do an episiotomy and I don't know, put it in, use traction. I said, what's traction? Anyway, Corky to the rescue said, I think she means pull. So on the next contraction, I gave a little tug on what was sticking out, and it turned out to be this little guy's wing. So he was coming out wing first. So here's the baby. And mom doing cleanup. And he's nuzzling around looking for her nipple. Bats' nipples are up kind of where ours are, but more under the armpit. Let me see his tiny wings. I hope you're all as interested in this as I am. Good mom. Anyway, here's their birth portrait. And his first wing stretch that I saw anyway. Well, and I was there the whole time. So yes, this was his first wing stretch. And here in this image, you can really see how destroyed her wings are. There should be wing membrane all along here, and there just isn't. So, and he's gripping her other wing with his foot and trying to figure out, where is that nipple I'm supposed to find? So, and then along came another baby. And so this is the firstborn, he was a boy, and this is the secondborn, a female. Here they both are, again, female, male. Quite miraculous. The babies bats have are huge compared to their body size. Most bats only give birth to one baby a year. For hoary bats and red bats, multiple births are common. Hoary bats, generally 2. Red bats can have as many as 4 or 5, but they don't survive. And in similar fashion, both of these babies didn't survive. Only the male did. So something happened to the female in the night, and she died in the night. So here's Junior under what mom has for a wing. And it seems to work okay for cuddling, even though you can see she just about has no wing membrane. Here he is wiggling around under her wing, trying to get cozy, trying to find that nipple. And we're going to watch him grow up. So here he is at 4 days old, 6.5 grams. I just wanted him to sit in the middle of this container, but no, those baby bat feet are meant for gripping, and he refused to not be able to grip something. 10 days old, not quite 10 grams, 1/3 of an ounce, penny for scale. 14 days. I think this was the first time I noticed him not latched on to his mother, not nursing. So I continued to feed her. I was feeding her bat smoothie, which is made up of a bunch of stuff, including mealworms and baby food and nutritious stuff. And I was feeding her the formula we would feed baby bats, but I didn't feed him at all. So she did all the feeding. I just kept her fed. Here he is at 19 days. Starting to look like a big bat. And weighing in like a big bat. We put them in the cup and set the cup on the scale to weigh them. You'll see this cup again. Almost as long as mom. I know he never has gotten as big as mom, and we're wondering if male hoary bats are just smaller than females. At 30 days, he was trying his wings out. Boom. So he just did a bit of a glide, and you can see Arden in the back trying to climb up, but she can't get a grip on that because she just can't do it. Her claws are worn down. So at 35 days, he should be flying. So here's the next video. At 35 days, watch him go. Yay, that was real flight. Yeah, the sound and video don't link up very well, but that was real flight. He stayed up in the air. So, and he's enjoying mealworms like a big boy. This was a white mealworm though, one of the soft ones. And these are just some of the tools of the trade. So this is a bat smoothie inside a syringe that's for giving children medications, and then just water from a syringe. These giant tweezers are for handling the mealworms. Oh, and I guess I didn't say this is Arden, the mom, and this is Junior, the big boy. And here's Junior listening. His ears quiver. And he did go up to the flight cage and try some flying, but he was injured in the flight cage, and we don't really know why, but it rubbed skin off his joints and it turned into a bacterial infection. So that's why he's still with me. So we're hoping in the spring, if we try something other than this specific flight cage, that he might be able to build up his strength and be able to be released. But we don't like to release pups in the winter. Not that it's very winter-like nowadays, but they need to be able to find food on the wing and know how to get water on the wing too. So bats get a drink while they're flying. Anyway, he has a lot to learn, and still hoping that he can be released, but he's definitely had his challenges. So what do we need in order to care for bats? Well, first of all, and I didn't put this in, but it really must be said, you cannot care for bats unless you are permitted or work under someone else's permit, which I do, and unless you have pre-exposure rabies vaccination, which is quite expensive unless you are a member of Kaiser. Kaiser will give you the series, which are not painful, at no charge. So if any of you are thinking about volunteering, and we really need more volunteers always, please get your rabies vaccination. It's not a big deal, and then you can care for these bats. So what do you need to do other than get your rabies vaccination? You need lots of time and lots of mealworms. So we ordered mealworms by the thousands, and caring for the mealworms takes almost as much time as caring for the bats. So this was a new shipment that came in, and it looks pretty good, but the previous one looked like this, where most of the mealworms were dead. So that shipment had trouble with the heat, I think, on the way in, and they had to be tossed mostly. But I really do spend a lot of time sorting and feeding and sorting and feeding and sifting out mealworms to feed the bats, and you got to be into it. So here's Lodi, and another hoary bat whom I'm going to show you later, who won't eat mealworms that are not soft and white. And some of these have already pupated. So these are the pupae that will turn into darkling beetles later, in a few days, actually. So she will eat these on her own, and she'll eat a few soft white ones until she's not super hungry anymore. And then I have to start tearing the heads off the mealworms and for her to eat them, because she just won't. And she may have something wrong with her jaw or her teeth or something. But anyway, here she is showing us how she can eat mealworms on her own if she feels like it. So she seems to have, she has a hard time getting a grip on them, which is what's nice about the pupae, because the pupae don't leave like the worms do. So she works at it. And then after a while, she'll just give up. Okay. So here's getting ready to take the mealworms into the room where most of the bats are. And the dishes that have more worms in them are for the hoary bats. They're the really big bats, and they eat quite a lot, and they move around a lot in their carrier, and there are 3 of them in one pen sort of thing. So they get the dishes that are pretty full, and then the other dishes go to the individual Mexican free-tail bats. And then in the upper right-hand corner, there's a dish with the mealworms still in their bedding. So they get sifted out of that and into these containers. And then there are supplements in the shaker on the left that get sprinkled on the mealworms to add nutrition for the bats. And then what we hope to see the next day, what I hope to see the next day when I go in and look in their carriers is a scene sort of like this, where you can see who has eaten well. And this is a really good sign. Everybody's eating. Some are eating more than others. And we really like a dish that looks like this, with just the heads and tails of mealworms and a few mealworms that might or might not be alive. And then a bit of bat poop means they were in the dish for a while, wandering around and chowing down. And then you have the dishes to do and notes to keep on each of the bats. This is for Squirt, a little Myotis californicus, California Myotis. The one in Nevada City. We saw her eating that nice white mealworm earlier. So I try to keep notes on what their weight was when I took them out to check them and feed them. She seems to need some supplemental feeding because she's not eating enough on her own, but at least she's eating on her own. I have some bats that will not eat on their own at all. And that's, well, it's frustrating. They should know by now that mealworms are tasty and they should eat them. So, oops, let me just go back there. I thought I had another, no, I guess I moved it. Okay, so this is where the hoary bats are, and there's a little dog for scale. And the hoary bats are the three of them in this pen. So that's Arden, the mother bat, and Junior, her son, and Lodi, the one who won't eat on her own, but will eat soft things. And then this is kind of the bat condos. We just use I use these little pet carriers, and also this larger thing that's called a reptarium. And I have a red bat in that. And one has to do the laundry, clean up, clear out, clean the water dishes and all that stuff. So it all takes time. And I tend to forget who's who. So I have to put tags on their carriers. So these are Bobby Folger's tag and Bruce's tag. They each had left wings that had to be amputated for who knows why. And then I have the notes about medication here, but I also keep them in my larger paper log. This is interesting information for the vet. If the bat is going to the vet, I put these tags on their carrier so the vet knows what's going on with them. And I use a kind of a tray to set up all of my feeding stuff. And then can't seem to point with my cursor anymore. It comes and goes. But anyway, there's a scale on the lower right with that blue cup and medications and all the tweezers and the, more medications and stuff like that. And sometimes when we get in a bat, this is one we had I think it was just last week, found at Sutter's Fort on the ground. If you look at NorCal Bats on our Facebook page, you'll see this bat's story. It was great. It's so wonderful to find a bat that isn't really injured, but you can see this bat does have a hole in her wing, but that's what my mother would call a no harm hole. So she can still fly with that. That's not a big deal. It's going to heal. It's going to close all on its own. So we were really happy to be able to just release this bat. And you can see her really cool slow motion release video on NorCal Bats Facebook page too. But sometimes the bats need more than we can give them. And this is another hoary bat who came in, and he had a break. I can't point, darn it. I wish the cursor would work. But anyway, in his left, and actually he's on his back. So that's his right wing. But the wing with a long pin in it is what the vet tried to do for this bat, because he had a fracture right at his wrist. And the only other alternative would have been amputation for him. So the vet tried pinning it. and he seemed fine. And then he died, which is what frequently happens. So we can't always solve things for ourselves. This bat had a terrible skin condition, and we didn't know what it was for the longest time. And finally I said, well, he's just going to have to go to the vet. And so he didn't like that. And they pulled off some skin on a piece of tape and put it under the microscope to try and see what it was. Couldn't really tell. So his samples were sent out to a lab, and God, how much did that cost? $360 for the lab test. It's just incredible. But it's like when you take your dog or cat to the vet, you have to support the vet. You have to pay the vet. So that's where some of our biggest expenses are with vet bills. So we're really grateful when people can help with donations. So, and then the vet referred to this book put out by Bat World in Texas, which talks about everything, about how to care for bats. And I realized I should have done that. I should have looked at these pictures, because there's our bat, there's his skin condition. And it turned out that it was a form of ringworm, which isn't really a worm. It's a fungal infection. Anyway, so big mistakes for him. And that bat did not survive, even though the vet bill was high. He didn't survive. So if you can support us with a donation, that is really, really fabulous. If you look at on NorCalBats.org, you'll see a page that says something about how we can help. And you can make donations there, or buy us something special through our Amazon wish list. But money is really, really what we need the most of. This is a red bat. I don't have many pictures of this bat, because she's lost a lot of fur on her face and her tummy, because she had too many worm guts get out and get on her skin and irritate it. But anyway, so this is Lodi, and this is Alberta, the red bat. I like to give them names just so I can remember who they are. Lodi was found in Lodi. Alberta was found in Alberta. And Elk Grove was found in Elk Grove, and so on. So there are lots of things that you can do to help bats other than send us money. At least 2 of the bats that I have in care right now were injured by cats. So keeping your cat indoors, if you can, is really fabulous. Never use any glue traps. Bats caught on glue traps mostly don't survive. And neither does anything else that gets caught on a glue trap, unless it's like your foot. Anyway, other things you can do is encourage young people to study bats. There's so much we don't know. So that's really, really helpful. And tell other people what you already know about bats, because you know a lot. Okay. So that's it for this part of what we're doing here tonight. So stop this. And I'm going to, I see there's things in the chat, and maybe those could be read to me while I try and pull out a couple of bats to share with you.
Yes, sorry, I had to unmute.
Oh, okay.
Gretchen asked, will her wings grow back?
Arden's, no, there's something about that syndrome that makes it really, really not happen. So no, she's with us for the long haul. Okay, so I'm going to, do you want to spotlight this camera here? And I'm going to get, I'm going to get out a Mexican free-tail bat first. I don't know that he will eat for us or anything, because he's not really used to being handled. But we can at least look at his little face. So let me move this. This is a Mexican free-tail bat too, but not a real one. And sorry for the stains on the cloth. As I was explaining earlier, mealworms stain they make a big mess everywhere. So they stain the fingers and they stain fabric and they stain some species of bats' teeth. And so if you want to have pristine fingers, you shouldn't volunteer to feed bats mealworms because your fingers will always be a mess. Okay, so I'm searching for a bat in here. And
Did you
this
all-
bat, yes, go ahead.
Did you want me to keep reading questions while you're doing this, or do you want to show them and then do
Yeah,
questions?
go ahead and talk to me because it's going to take me a minute to find him. He's
Okay.
under the cage liner.
Okay. Melinda said her and her family have been several times to see the bats at the Old Causeway.
Great.
And Nikki's asking what your thoughts on bat houses are.
What? Oh, thoughts on bat houses. They're lovely. I have a beautiful one that Sonia Shelley built for me, and it's just gorgeous. And I'm hoping someday the bats might come and roost in it, but they're not a sure thing, but you know, they are lovely. And it's a nice thing to do in case you do have bats in your neighborhood who are looking for a home. So I think bat houses are great. You can look online and find instructions for how to build them, or you can buy ready-made ones. Okay, so this is Jay, and I call him Jay because he is one of the bats who lost his wing to a jay. The finder actually saw the jay working on this bat in her backyard. She said she saw the jay was doing something to something on the pavement, and she went out and found this poor little guy. And again, she said, you know, well, his one wing looks good, the other wing doesn't. And this was, oops, sorry, I bumped the camera. I want to just try and give him a little water. You want a drink? Oh, what a good boy. What a good boy. Yes, very good boy. See his little foot moving too? Is that tasty water? Yeah. Usually he just shakes his head and he doesn't want to take any water, but today he does, so that's good. So let's see if you want to show them your good wing. So Mexican freetails are the most common bat here. And actually they're probably the most common bat in North America because they live in such huge numbers here. So, and they're built for speed. They have these long, narrow wings. And they are the fastest mammal on the planet. They fly faster than a cheetah can run. And in horizontal flight, they're the fastest creature on the planet. So there are, of course, the peregrine falcons can do their really, really fast dive in a stoop, but these guys in horizontal flight could beat a peregrine falcon. Okay, and they're called a Mexican freetail because they have this tail that sticks up like the tail of a happy dog. See his tail sticking out there? And then the other really, really cool thing about Mexican freetails is they have hobbit feet. So they have little hairs on their toes. I don't know if you can see these. It's hard to get the camera to actually focus on what I wanted to focus on. Can't find that spot. But anyway. So these are super important bats to agriculture and to the planet. Look at his rear end. They have a very, very cute bottom. Oops, sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy. Wanted to try and get it to focus on your cute little rear end. So they have kind of they have fur that stops right above the bottom line. So his fur, he's just skin here and a very soft fuzz. So anyway, so he's done a good job of eating. He probably did this last night though, because I haven't given them new food today. So that's good eating, Jay. Good job. Proud of you. Okay.
Terry asked when the babies will be liberated from mom, but you kind of went over that.
Yeah.
And then Sammy asked, how long do they live?
Oh, bats live a really long time compared to other small mammals. So some species, I think that the bat species with the longest recorded lifespan, it was over 40 years, 40 years. And that was a bat in Siberia, for heaven's sake. Of course, there they would spend half their lives in hibernation, so that probably doesn't wear your body down as much as being out and hunting for food does. But our local bats, you know, it probably varies, and the hardest part is surviving to adulthood. And I forgot to turn on the bat detector so you could hear the echolocation. But here's Lodi, and she is echolocating for you because I turned on the bat detector. Say a little something else, Lodi. No? You're not going to talk? Yeah. So the hoary bats are called hoary bats because they have this beautiful fur coat that is tipped with white like a hoar frost, HOAR. And it's beautiful camouflage, and they really need it because where they hang out is in trees. And if they're hanging on a branch, you're not going to notice them because they're going to blend right in with a tree branch. And let's see if Lodi wants a drink. Do you want a drink? So Lodi has only one wing as well. She came in with a bad fracture to her wing, probably from a raptor, a bird of prey, or something else. We don't know. But they have this fabulous furry tail that they wrap themselves up with when they're roosting in the tree. And other bat species don't have any fur on their tail. Remember that little boy I just showed you with the bare butt? No, this is totally the opposite. But when he is roosting, he's among his comrades and tucked in for warmth. But she's all by herself, hanging from the branch of a tree, and needs to wrap herself up in her blanket, like the red bats do. So our red bats and hoary bats are tree bats. They're solitary tree roosting bats.
There's another question. Dale
Great.
just asked if you ever see any acclimation to human contact during recovery. If so, are there any risks when they're released?
I don't think so. They would always rather be somewhere other than with us. So I don't know. Does that answer? Am I answering the question? I didn't hear the first part of it very, very well.
Do you ever see any acclimation to human contact during recovery? Like, do they bond to you or prefer to be hand fed than go out and catch their own?
Well, they they like food. They like eating, so they figure out pretty quickly that they don't need to bite us and fight with us because we provide them with food. But I wouldn't say that they would prefer it. I'm sure that Lodi would prefer to have her wing back and be able to be in the wild. And I don't think, I just so hope that Junior will be able to go to the wild too.
So if they're healthy and they don't have injuries, you release them and they
yes,
they do fine.
Well, we hope so.
As far as you know, yeah.
We don't really know about individuals, but research has shown that bats that have been in captivity for a while and are healed and ready to go, that they can survive out on their own, and that they do learn the skills that they need. So here she's eating a worm, which I kindly decapitated for her. But look, here's a white one. So let's see if she'll eat this. Oh, brave girl. I kind of have to hold it in her mouth for a minute or for a few seconds so she can get a bite on it. Okay. And here is a non-white one. Let's see if she'll eat that.
Allison just asked, do they get to practice catching flying food before they're released?
No, they don't. So, although if they are in the flight cage, remember that picture I showed you of the flight cage that is open to the elements? The walls of that are not solid. So it is possible for insects to come in and for the bats to catch them. But we don't know if they do. But hey, I think she actually ate that without my taking the head off. Let's see, if I let go of it, let's see what she does. She's hungry. Okay, good job, Lodi. All right, so I guess that means I just need to be more patient and not assume that she won't eat it because she doesn't eat it right away. Very good. Yeah, Lodi came into care in February of last year, so it's almost been a full year for her. Okay, do you have other questions?
Nope, that's it for right now. I've had such a hard time being on mute. I just want to ooh and ah.
Oh, well, that's good. All right. All right. So I see that one of my friends wrote me a question directly and said that they cannot see my pointer, my cursor. Was that true the whole time? You couldn't see it? There were some times when I knew that it couldn't be seen, but other times
I could tell that you were trying to use it because you would say here, but it
Oh,
wasn't
and
showing
it
up on the
didn't
screen
show
at all.
up?
No, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's important for me to know for next time. And I need to research that and find out. I know on other programs, you can turn your cursor into a pointer and then it definitely shows up. So there's got to be a way to do that here too.
Here's a very good question. How do we get more information about volunteering?
Oh, you go to norcalbats.org, the website, and there's a page about how you can participate. And there's a form that you can fill out and send in to let us know that you want to be included in the training. And if you really, really, really want to help, you can make that known. And I started out just saying, well, I'll drive, I'll go pick them up, but I don't want to have to take care of them. And now look at me. It's just amazing. And I do kind of try to avoid the birthing season, the baby bats. They have to feed them every 2 hours. It's awful. But some people love that. So we really, especially in the summer, we need more help. So go look at norcalbats.org.
There were comments that it was fascinating, and Nikki said, thank you so much. It's been so informative.
Oh, cool. That's great. Glad to hear it.
Corky answered that training is in June, so it's
good.
coming up.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now is Lodi still eating these worms with their heads on?
Melinda asked, will you keep the ones that can't be released until they die?
They become what we call our education bats, and they help out with events like this. And when you go to see, well, if we're ever back in public again, when you go to see the YOLO bats fly out at the causeway, Corky always has education bats with her, so you can see them in person there. And they go to some events when we have events that can be tabled, with a table of information and some live. See, she's not eating this now. So yes, we take care of them. And there are other organizations that have bats, and they request bats from us if we have more than we can house or want to house. So I know that happens.
People are saying thank you very much for sharing. It was very cool to watch, and thank you very much. Corky just said the calendar is on the website.
Great.
We do have a few events, www.norcalbats.org.
Great. That's great. That's really good. Okay. So then I am reduced to tearing the heads off mealworms to feed this bat. But it's what I do. So.
Does anybody else have any questions? It's 8 o'clock, so I know that some people probably need to leave, but I want to make sure that I kind of want to watch her eat. But if anybody else has any questions, please put them in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do have other bats in care right now. Well, I have two of the tiny California myotis, both of whom were cat caught. So they need to be on antibiotics for a couple of weeks at least. And they both have injuries to their wing and tail membranes. And then I have the red bat, and I have these 3 hoary bats, and I have I think four other Mexican freetails. Maybe I have 6 Mexican freetails altogether, but it's kind of a crowd.
Melinda asked, will the young one learn on his own to eat while he's in flight once released?
Yes. I think he'll be hungry for a while and then he'll figure it out. But that it has been shown that people at Bat World have kept track of their bats that have been released and seen them coming back to roost in the same place. They have a huge structure they built as a gigantic bat house. And they see bats that were tagged as having been raised in that colony or raised and released by the humans. They see them come back alive years later. So we know they're surviving.
I have a quick question about how do they tag them? And then there's another question about, sorry if this can be found online, but besides actually housing / caring for bats, what duties can volunteers do?
Well, it varies. As I said, I started out just by driving, and driving is what we really, really need, because people will call from Nevada City and say, I have a bat, I don't have a car. Can you help me? And somebody needs to drive there and get it. So that's a really, really easy way to help. And even sometimes I will I'm retired, and I have an electric car, so I don't mind driving long distances. So I'll drive the bats to the vet, even if they're not bats that I'm taking care of, because that has to be done during working hours, and it's a long drive, and sit around and wait for them, and all that stuff. So those are ways that you can volunteer without actually having to care for the bats in your home. And I'm sure there are other ways. Corky might jump in with the chat and say something about that. Don't know. Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat now myself. And this is fun. While I'm feeding the bats, I watch TV. I watch on my laptop, just like I'm doing now. And it's pretty fun. Because Lodi's obviously not going to fly off. I have to keep an eye on the red bat though, because she can fly off, but she doesn't like to eat by herself. She likes company. So I feed the red bat and Lodi at the same time I'm watching TV.
So they each have personalities.
They're each different. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And I see Madeline Wilson says she went to look at the Mexican freetails under the Covell pedestrian bridge in Davis, and was surprised to see so many this early in the year. I think Corky could chime in on that too, but I think a lot of the males hang around for the winter. especially when we're having such mild weather right now. The insects are probably just great. Well, I know they're great out there. I saw some flying in my house today. So, yeah.
So you get attached to them.
Yes, yes. So,
bet.
so even though there are organizations that would like a hoary bat, but I don't, I can't imagine giving one up because I know them. So I'm hoping they will get to stay here, but we need to work on that.
Melinda asked if it's final that the bat colony will not be disturbed with the I-80 renovations. Does anybody know?
That's still some years out there, isn't it? I mean, I know they're still in the planning stages, and we keep going to the meetings and saying, don't bother the bat colony. 2025, Corky says. So we don't, I think last we heard, they haven't even decided what they're going to do, whether they're going to just add another structure next to the existing structure or modify the existing structures. I think they still don't know. So we don't know how that will affect the colony.
And they're very well known and loved. So hopefully people
Yes,
will.
and Caltrans is required to not disturb the bats in some way. I mean, they sure did a lot there on Highway 50. And I imagine they disturb the bats a lot, but the number of bats roosting under Highway 50 going through Sacramento is minuscule compared to the number of bats under the causeway. So don't know.
I know downtown they have the cones attached. Right. Do those work? They can leave, but they can't re-enter.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And Corky points out that they won't do any of the work during the pup season. So when the largest number of bats are out under the causeway or using the causeway as a roost is during the maternity season, which is probably from April to September. So Caltrans will definitely do their work in other months.
Madeline asked, why do you house the Mexican free-tails separate rather than together in the way you house the hoary bats?
Well, I keep meaning to set up a larger thing for the hoary bats. I'm sorry, for the free-tails, and I need to do that because they're very social animals. I didn't at first because we keep them separate for at least a month after we get them in because we don't want to put bats together that might be sick. So I do have a group that I have 3 that could go together, and I just honestly haven't figured out where the heck to put another larger reptarium is what it's called. So it's on my list of things to do.
Are there any other questions? She's really hungry. Yeah. She just keeps eating.
Yes, yes. And that's quite a few little worms going down the drain here, down the Lodi drain.
She's so pretty.
Yeah, she is. Hoary bats are very beautiful, very beautiful. Yes. Okay, well, this has really been fun. Come back
and
watch me feed bats again sometime. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing everything and for sharing your babies and all your knowledge. And now if people find bats, we know where to take them. Thank you to you and Corky and NorCal Bats.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming. I think it's very exciting. And I'm really excited that some people might come volunteer. That's wonderful.
It looks like you might get a couple more volunteers out of this.
That's great. We really need more. Okay, super. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you, Terry Gordon, for setting us up to do this. And I'm sorry I couldn't show you Batman, but he just does not want to be handled. So you'll have to come visit him.
That sounds good. Thank you so much, JoEllen. I think I'll go ahead and just end the meeting here. And I really appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing.
Super. Thank you for being so interested.
I guess I can start my video. All right, everyone have a good night. Keep checking the website. There'll be another lecture next month, and big shoes to fill after yours. So thank you.